Tory Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze's not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked up the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here, because I'll tell you, that's a bad, bad, bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on...
Welcome to hour number 3, live right here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We enter our third and final hour together, but still so much to get to around Major League Baseball to set the stage for a full slate on this Tuesday. Some hockey talk here in this third and final hour. What the Boston Bruins were able to accomplish last night in Sunrise, dismantling the Florida Panthers with revenge on their mind, and what we have moving forward in the Stanley Cup postseason before a doubleheader breakdown for tonight's action in the NBA playoffs as well. DRS, what a third and final hour in store.
Weather's getting warmer out here in the Northeast for the month of May. The action getting absolutely red hot on the ice and also on the court. I love this time of year here. It's going to be fantastic to watch it play out. Upsets, maybe teams that we don't think can make runs, can actually make runs here. Yeah, we're ready to go here, Ben, which includes, again, in one half, maybe a week and a half now, PGA Championship, Valhalla from Kentucky. The one thing that, you know what? Hold on. Let's talk about that for a second here.
Please,
Kentucky,
Yeah, go ahead.
known more for Goff than good basketball right now. I mean, come on now, right?
Jared Goff? He's from Northern California.
Yeah.
You said golf or golf?
Come on, golf is not a word. There's no golf. Hey guys, you want to go golfing
the Gulf
this
of
weekend?
Mexico. There's golf on the PGA Tour. Then there's Jared Goff.
Nah.
Who's that? Who's the backup quarterback for the New Orleans Saints this past year?
Who was? Look, I don't remember things from yesterday. Ask me the backup. Jameis Winston? Come on, who was it?
That was good. You got that. Okay, So listen, I was going to ask you a follow-up question before you went into Valhalla next week in Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville, Kentucky. Pat Kelsey, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State, looking pretty good in college hoops. I was going to say over-under a half, DRS. The games the Denver Nuggets will win the remainder of this series, over under a half. Donnie Rightside smokes a cigar on his back porch today on a beautiful Tuesday in the Northeast.
Yeah, it's got to go. They have to win one game. Put it this way. If the Denver Nuggets get swept out, I want to see the Boston Celtics at a plus 450 to win an NBA championship, because not only the Timberwolves going to win, they won't lose a single game in the playoffs if they come through with a sweep against the Denver Nuggets. That's how I'm feeling riding that wave for the T-Wolves right now.
And that's really what we asked the public as well. So without further ado, it's time to hear from the people. Will the Nuggets come back to even make it a competitive series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, or might this already be done? We're talking 4, potentially at most 5 games. That was the question in Fade the Public. At SportsGrid on Twitter, can the Nuggets come back and beat the Timberwolves in round 2? Minnesota wins both games in the Mile High City to start off this set. An 0-2 hole for Denver as they leave their home floor advantage to head to the Twin Cities on Friday night for game number 3. Nearly 69% of the public saying no, the Nuggets cannot come back and beat the Timberwolves here in this second round set. Where do you fall, DRS? And if the answer is no, how many games does this series go between the Nuggets and the T-Wolves?
Boy, I tell you, it's tough because you're taking a look at a Denver Nuggets team where the back is up against the wall. Now, granted, in similar series, you see a team go down 2-0. All right, we'll go back to our home court. Let's see if we can even this up before making it a de facto best of 3 in the other team's building. The fact that they lost so decidedly, it felt like in game number 2 on their home court with no Rudy Gobert, there's not a lot to love here. So I voted no, along with the rest of the people, about 69% now voting no, and that's rightfully so. If you just look at it in terms of they're down 0-2, can they win the series? People are like, yeah, they're a really good basketball team. But when you just put it in layman's terms and go, they're going to have to win 4 out of 5 games where they no longer have home court advantage. I don't know how that actually is possible at this point. So I don't think they can come back. But having said that again, boy, some of those numbers that we talked about all season long, like, hey, the Phoenix Suns, look at these prices here. Eventually they'll get it together. Only if they're healthy for the playoffs, we can get a great price on them. End up getting swept in round number 1. The reason I bring this up is you take a look at the Denver Nuggets and say to yourself, 15-1 here on the Nuggets when we already were talking about a week ago, like, man, nobody's beating the Nuggets. I love the Timberwolves. They'll make this series close. This will go game 7, but Denver's going to win it. We're probably not seeing a game 7, let alone a game 6, or maybe even a game 5 in this series. But you see that price point, you say to yourself, how do you pass that up? Isn't it worth just a flyer going like, maybe they can come up big in game number 3 and change some of the dynamics, because a 15-1 price for the Nuggets is wild until you realize what the stakes are and what they're up against.
It is crazy how much this can move in less than a week. At this point last week, Denver was the odds-on favorite to win the Western Conference crown. Now it's Minnesota. Of course, all of that was before this second-round series began, or the first 2 games went the way of the Timberwolves on the road in the Mile High City. But less than a week ago, Denver was the odds-on favorite. Now the Timberwolves are a minus 150 favorite to win the West. Denver had the second best price at plus 230 to win the NBA championship, just over $1 behind the Boston Celtics. Now it's the T-Wolves with that second best number, around a plus 290 price to win the NBA title. And the Celtics are sitting here as the beneficiary, perhaps, because the expected Nuggets are falling back. Although if Minnesota is going to get there after a dismantling of Denver, then Minnesota should not be overlooked in any bit. I voted yes, because prior to game 2, I bet Denver to win this series at plus 108. And I'm going to make a point, and it's probably going to mean nothing, because I don't think Denver wins this series. I don't think you can lose both games on your home floor, go to Minnesota, even try to win 2 of the next 3 in the Twin Cities, and then have to win both game 5 and game 7. I think it's too steep a hill to climb for Denver. But if you have any belief in the Nuggets, I don't think plus 470 is your number. The chance that Denver pulls off a sweep in the next 4 games, very limited. It's a 17-1 price for the Nuggets to win this series in 6. That's the series correct score market. You see plus 410 for this series to go 7. That gives you both outcomes. Minnesota could win a 7th game on the road in Denver as well. But if you think the Nuggets have any fighting chance, and it's even worth a sprinkle, I think your best wager is Denver in 7. Series correct score plus 650.
Or you could just take a look at some of those wild prices on the series, basically run line, right? Plus 3.5 games at a minus 140 price. It's under a minus 150 number. If you think they have any fight and loss, we're talking about a championship team who's really good. Yes, they got a haymaker last night, didn't look all that good. You expect a bounce back performance. Or is it just that the Minnesota Timberwolves are so far and away better than any team in the NBA that not even the reigning NBA champions can actually get a game from them? Would be wild to let it play out. I do still think there's value on the Denver Nuggets by telling you that I still don't think they can win this series. So it's one of those brain battles that you're trying to fight out, knowing how good the Nuggets are and how good the Timberwolves are. You try to make it make sense. But I think the easiest way, again, to lay this out, Ben, is they have to win 4 out of 5 games against the Timberwolves with home court advantage. That's really not going to happen. I don't care how good the Nuggets are at this point. You can't lose the first 2 games at home, specifically the way they did, and expect them to win this series, even though, again, I want to bet them here because the numbers are so outrageous.
It's almost like losing by 26 is the final nail in the coffin, but then you use the reverse brain function to say, all right, throw game 2 away, fresh start game number 3.
Exactly.
Not the debilitating, late and controversial loss that will be stewing over for the next 3 days. And let me get on my Donnie right side soapbox here for a moment. What are we doing, NBA? We played these first 2 games of this second round series before 2 other series even played their opening game. And now we have 3 days off before we get to Minnesota in game number 3 on Friday. What a weird schedule. Major League Baseball. Donnie's got a scoop up next.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path, but quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It was something that Donnie Rightside mentioned on Monday that maybe wasn't all that discussed around the sports landscape, slightly under the radar in MLB. Luis Arias, one of the best hitters in all of Major League Baseball, one of the best leadoff guys in all of MLB, because he seemingly is always on base, traded from the Marlins to the Padres over the weekend, was 4 for 4 in his debut, 0 for yesterday on the road in Chicago. And our guy, who is normally here for the daily basis, Craig Mish, was the one to break down the trade details. Luis Arias traded from Miami to San Diego. In return, the Marlins get a haul for the future. Woo Suck Go is a crazy name. Jacob Marcy and some others head back to the Fish. And then it was Donnie's scoop that really made this official. Luis Arias on the bump, or on the move, and Donnie Rightside made sure to mention what Miami got. So although Craig reported it, it wasn't truly finalized until DRS was the one to put the details into full confirmation.
And by the way, if we were watching a different television network on a different sport, as of like inside the NBA, you would get one of those like, now who'd they get back, Ben? Who'd they get back on that? Like, as you would say to Charles Barkley at this point, you have to repeat those exact players' names here. But let's get to the point of this. Yeah, here's what I don't understand about the Marlins, right? You trade last year for Luis Arias, one of the best young hitters in the game. And I say young because he's still in his 20s, I believe 27 years old. So if we're led to believe that we traded away a pitcher who's pitching very well now for the Minnesota Twins that you might have used here, what are we actually doing with this lineup? Are we under the guise that the Miami Marlins, again, are going to be under a rebuild that they're currently in, that have been in for a couple years, that's going to extend for a couple more years? Or would you rather have one of the best hitters in baseball at 27 for the next 2 to 3 years than when he's 31 and still in his prime in Major League Baseball, when you figure those prospects would start to come up, have one of the better hitters in baseball? This is what I don't understand, and this is also the fallacy of Major League Baseball and how it actually works, where you take a look at teams like the Oakland Athletics and the Marlins are two of the more profitable teams because they don't spend any money but drag on the rest of baseball to get that luxury tax back into their coffers. It's completely unfair. You get a new stadium in South Florida, nobody comes there, not because your team isn't good, it's because the players on the team as well as the fan base knows they're not going to get that money to actually make you competitive. So why waste your time going down to the ballpark? Like, we're starting another how mmany rebuilds have the Miami Marlins had in the past 20 years in their existence? And to every single year at this point. So you can say to your blue in the face, hey, look, they're not going to win this year, trade one of their players away. Okay, now you get these guys back in 2 to 3 years. You'll be doing the same thing with your only good players on this team. It's Major League Baseball's own fault here. We would not accept this in the National Football League, but we accept it in Major League Baseball in some of these markets. And I can't get my head wrapped around it, Ben.
I think it's a really good point, DRS. Why exactly is this happening? Craig might have had further details. He would not have brought the heat that Donnie Rightside just did. But the Marlins weren't expected to be this bad, this quickly, this year. The Fish weren't supposed to be the bottom feeders in the National League. Maybe not a World Series contender, truly. But after an 0-9 start, a 1-11 start, and now the second worst record in the National League at 10-27, third worst in all of the bigs. This is the direction they are going once again. It is difficult in a large media market to look at your fan base and say, we are fully invested. Your actions say the opposite. Luis Arias yesterday, 0 for 4, of course, for San Diego, despite the win for San Diego in Chicago, but still batting north of 300 this year. And you see the career stats. The Padres, a huge addition. 6 seasons, a .324 Major League Baseball career average, only 24 home runs, but that's not really what it comes down to. He's a 2-time batting champion because he always finds his way on to the base paths. San Diego is an interesting team, kind of the opposite of Miami. The Padres have invested financially the last few years, really not to see much return on the investment. Now an even 500, 19-19 after the victory yesterday in Wrigley. What should that expectation be for San Diego the rest of the way with their investment into Luis Arias and continuously trying to make this roster better?
Look, they're in a tough division, no doubt about it. But also, you get to, Miami is not a small market. Miami is not Pittsburgh at this point. Miami is not OKC in the NBA. Well, what do you want them to do? They just don't have the corporate support. There's no reason for Miami. And also, that international market down there, Ben, that absolutely loves baseball worldwide. When you have the World Baseball Classic down there, it's sold out for a reason. Not because, oh, look at this, are we finally going to show up to a big event? No, you're showing up because there's really good baseball players out on the diamond and you want to cheer them on. It's amazing that the Marlins are really a scapegoat at this point by saying, well, what do you want us to do? I don't know. And also, over the past decade, that whole Jeter leadership group, they never signed any free agents here. All they did was trade away their better players. And where's their prospects for it at this point? It seems like they have no prospects that are ready to go. You're talking about Giancarlo Stanton that was given away. You're talking about Christian Yelich that was given away. JT Realmuto. They're just a few of the guys that they had leading that ball club and got zero back for that. So we're led to believe that this ownership group now is going to be able to trade their baseball players away and get good prospects in the future. Quite frankly, do they even want that to happen? Because if they don't have any good prospects, they don't have to pay any players. They can have a $30 million payroll where the Dodgers are at $400 million and say, great, we're profitable now because we don't even try. Enough with that nonsense here. Yeah. But back to the Padres, I like where they're going. RBI prop shots for me throughout the summer. They're going to be lovely with the Padres. Love that move for them. Get a 350 hitter in your leadoff hole to set the table for those stars behind it. Love what the Padres are doing. Absolutely love it.
30 clubs in Major League Baseball. Miami, one of 5 that has won less than 40% of their games this year. The Houston Astros, also part of that group of 5. DRS, a ton of games to run through on this jam-packed Tuesday slate on the other side of this break. But the marquee matchup is in the Bronx. It's our guy, Lucas Gill. Again, a joke. Luis Heel gets the start for the Yankees as they host the Houston Astros and Justin Verlander on the other side. Houston is 12-22. 10 games below 500. They have to start winning at a certain point. Does it begin this week up in the Bronx? We'll tell you on the other side of the break. And then I mean rapid fire. Only so many ISO power numbers in Woba to break down for DRS that we can get to up next here on the Early Line.
Are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, rapid fire. I mean rapid fire. The Astros and the Yankees today up in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. Luis Gil and the Yanks a slight home favorite, -118 against the Stros, who put on the mound Justin Verlander. Houston is 10 games below 500, going up against one of the best in the American League. Can they start to turn things around this week in the Bronx?
Two decent lineups here that are going to be out and also in a ballpark that is susceptible to home runs. 68, 69 degrees at first pitch, light wind blowing out to left field. So it's not going to make that big of a difference. But if we're taking a look at runs, maybe a little bit tougher to come by here, Ben. 8 is the total listed. You take a look at Verlander, not very many starts on the season this year. 69 total batters he's faced. ISO of 164, which is very good for a pitcher. Weighted on base percentage of 299. However, against right-handed pitching this year, he got some pretty good power in that lineup for the Yankees. If we take a look at 2 through 6, that's Soto, Judge, Verdugo, Stanton, and Rizzo. 303, 176, 216, 241, and 269 are the respective ISO power numbers. So you're going to have to play a little bit with those numbers to see how they match up. But Luis Gil has been really good, Ben. 130 batters faced this year, a 103 ISO and a 256 weighted on base percentage. So as much as I don't want this to happen, it looks like it's probably going to be tough to get 9 runs to cash this ticket. I'll go under in the Bronx in this game. Pretty good pitching matchup out there today.
The Braves swept over the weekend in that marquee matchup in the National League against the Dodgers. A day off, return home, try to bounce back in Atlanta. Will the Braves do that today against Cutter Crawford and the Red Sox?
They need to do something, but that lineup that has been so good throughout the past couple years doesn't really show up on paper right now against right-handed pitching. You take a look at the lineup, Austin Riley, 171 ISO power number. That's average. Marcell Ozuna, 224. They're the 2 highest guys on that roster against right-handed pitching over the past 30 days, which means 7 of those batters certainly not performing, at least in the power department. That could be an advantage. Now, Cutter Crawford, not a great pitcher, but having said that, he's been really good this year. 165 in the amount of batters that he's faced this year. An 060 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 242. That's impressive. Now, Ronaldo Lopez, a guy that's really going around Major League Baseball, known for giving up home runs. He ain't giving up too many home runs this year, Ben. 115 batters he's faced, an ISO power number combined of a 105. So you take a look at one of those ballparks that tends to heat up at this time of year, and it's 81 degrees tonight at first pitch Atlanta. It probably still streams to an under tonight in this environment. So go figure. Back-to-back games with 2 good lineups here that we're looking for unders, Ben.
Yeah, it would be the case in that start. Cutter Crawford right now, a 1.56 ERA, second best in the bigs. That's because Shota Imanaga hasn't hit the minimums inning pitched at this moment to be qualified for that leaderboard. Less than 35 for Imanaga, but his ERA, that's a .78. He is 5-0 in the 6 starts he has made for the Cubs. They have won all 6 games. Greater than $1.50 favorite today in Wrigley. Lost the opening game of this series yesterday despite a great pitching performance from Justin Steele. Can Chicago bounce back inside the friendly confines?
I do think they will, and rightfully so. They should be the favorite. The better pitcher on the mound today, certainly from a Cubs perspective. Imanaga has been nothing short of spectacular. ISO power number through 132 batters this year, Ben, 062. Weighted on base percentage, 193. Nobody's getting on base. And even though I love the look of that San Diego Padres lineup tonight, it certainly is not one of that you're going to love going against this pitcher. But Randy Vasquez on the opposite side, a right-handed pitcher. Last year, Ben, 80 batters he faced from the left-hand side, 221 ISO, 322 weighted on base percentage, right around average with an elevated ISO number. This year, he's only faced 9 left-handed batters, but a 714 ISO and an 870 weighted on base percentage. Maybe there's a little bit of a correlation struggling last year with lefties, and maybe that continues this year. So for my money, if I'm looking for an under in this game, because quite frankly, I don't know how many runs that we're going to get from San Diego, even though we do have winds blowing out in Wrigley at 8 miles an hour to center field, something over the past couple of days we're blowing in. But I would look at Mike Talkman in this lineup, Michael Busch, and maybe a shot there with the youngster Pete Crow Armstrong in the 8 hole. I do think the Cubs are the better team today, but from a percentage of where I want to bet, probably more Talkman and more Busch here to get an RBI going up against Vasquez, the right-handed pitcher.
Speaking of bounce backs, Vinny P, we're looking at you, Vinny Pasquantino, for the Royals today. KC did win yesterday, though. A 3-2 victory over Milwaukee. KC booked as a -130 home money line favorite today against the Brewers.
75 degrees, wind blowing out today in Kansas City. That should help you. And I like the way the lineup profiles here for the Kansas City Royals against right-handed pitching this season. And also, if we're focusing on Colin Ray last year, who really struggled with left-handed batters, this year he's been about average, a 195 ISO and a weighted on-base percentage of 335. So just to get this short here, Vinny P., Michael Massey should be on your cards tonight for legitimate chances for RBI. Run it back, people. It was 1-for-1 last night. Maybe a 2-0 night tonight for those two guys.
Vinny P, 2+ total bases, -110.
Oh, yeah.
Up talk now, next.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path, but quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We have reached the second round of the Stanley Cup postseason, and there was an opening game last night in Sunrise between the Panthers and the Bruins. We go all around the ice on this Tuesday with the NHL's Anna Dua. She joins us live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to be here on this Tuesday.
Thanks for having me, guys.
One game last night, Anna. That was it in Sunrise between Florida and Boston. Of course, a rematch of last year's opening round, now in round number 2. The Bees last year, the best team the NHL has ever seen in a regular season, had a 3-1 lead against the measly 8 seed, the Panthers, and Florida rattled off 3 straight wins to upset the Boston Bruins. Last night, though, the Bees reverse the fortune. They win 5-1 on the road in Sunrise. Was revenge the motivating factor last night, Anna, for Boston?
A little bit, for sure. I know they definitely want the series to go the other way around this time, but also like this goes into the rest versus rust debate where Boston's coming off all this momentum with a huge OT win in Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs and just being able to carry that into this game when Florida was the dominant team against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It really didn't look like much of a difficult series for them, and maybe it's just going to take 1 or 2 games for them to find their footing. It is worth noting, though, I know the regular season doesn't really matter when the playoffs come around, but Boston did beat Florida 4 times in the regular season, never lost against the Panthers. So I think we saw a little bit of that last night.
How about taking a look at the goalie situation? Because we talk about sometimes like you have a great quarterback, you have a great pitcher, but in baseball, you only get to pitch one out of every 4 to 5 nights. Swayman has been spectacular in goal for the Bruins here, a 1.42 goals against average. Talk about how a goalie can get hot at the right moment and really carry one of these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. A good goalie can take you really far in the postseason, although you never know in hockey because Aiden Hill won a Stanley Cup with the Vegas Golden Knights last year, so it kind of depends on year to year. But Jeremy Swayman has been lights out. Igor Shesterkin also playing really, really well. Jake Ottinger having some good performances as of late, too. So we're seeing those teams looking really strong right now, but Boston has historically had a tandem. It seems like Swayman's just showing up and showing out this postseason, and Boston needs that if they hope to beat Florida.
The Panthers were the series favorites entering the opening game last night, still have home ice advantage, but now it's the Boston Bruins, a slight series favorite to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. Anna, how long do you see this series going between the Bruins and the Panthers?
I had the Florida Panthers in 7 games, so that's what I had originally. I thought this was going to see the test of time, and I still feel like it's going to go either 6 or 7. Boston did have a much better performance than I thought in Game 1. I do think Florida just needs a couple of games to get their footing straight, so I still see 6 or 7, but I am more concerned. I thought Florida was going to be really, really dominant, either against the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Boston Bruins. I thought neither of those teams had a chance against Florida. Maybe the Bruins are going to prove me wrong.
Yeah, the Bruins. Let's see if they can get on a run, but also if we keep it in the Eastern Conference here, Carolina and New York. Anderson versus Shesterkin tonight, a 5.5 total. And how about this at the FanDuel Sportsbook? A de facto pick 'em between these two with a slight favorite still here for the Hurricanes at a minus 120 price. Do we see a 2-0 series lead for New York, or can Carolina even up the series before going back to Carolina?
Well, I have the Canes winning the Stanley Cup, so I'm really hoping that they even out the series in this one. They've historically not been the best road playoff team for the past couple of years, so I'm not even too stressed if you're looking at a futures type of situation with either Carolina in this series or them taking home the whole thing. But for me, I think the first game we saw between these two teams was very, very close. The New York Rangers barely won. The Hurricanes only had 25 shots on goal in that game, and this is a team that usually gets up there in the shot total. They're definitely 30 plus, so they didn't really look like themselves in that matchup. There were some penalties that went a certain way that I know that Carolina wishes that they could get back, because we really saw the New York Rangers capitalize on that. So once I feel like they clear everything up, perhaps we're in a different ball game in this series, but I think they even it out today for sure.
Minus 120, the Canes a road ice favorite inside the Garden, as they were for game number 1. Now a series underdog to New York. Try to marry up those odds that we see for this series. And right now the Rangers, the favorites to win the Eastern Conference at plus 220, but all 4 teams left standing, separated by only 70 cents at this moment. How tightly contested is the Eastern Conference going to be the remainder of this Stanley Cup postseason?
Oh, it's like absolutely a gauntlet right now in the Eastern Conference. Like when we're taking a look at the West, I feel like whatever team comes out of the Western Conference is looking really, really good to make a deep run and take home the Stanley Cup, just because you're going to have to go through a gauntlet to get out of the East. Any of those teams left could easily take home the whole thing, and we're seeing these matchups. We're going to see them become a little bit better. I feel like the first couple of games, we haven't really seen that excitement. I could see both of these series going to 6 or 7 games in the East, where I don't know if I necessarily feel that way in the West. I feel like some teams like Edmonton are looking really strong right now, even a Colorado-Dallas type of situation. Either of those teams could kind of run away with it. The East is close. It's anyone's ball game out East.
Let's head out west tonight for the Western Conference. That's going to be Colorado and Dallas. Take a look at this game tonight on the FanDuel Sportsbook, a minus 126 favorite in the opening game. That's through the home team here, Dallas, a 6.5 total. We just previewed a game with a 5.5. Now we're expecting more offense here out west. What are we looking at tonight between the Avalanche and the Stars here, Anna?
This is a tough one. I feel like this is one of those games where game 1 is going to be a little bit of a series-defining game. We saw opposite things happen where the Avs showed up and showed out against the Winnipeg Jets. I did not really expect that to happen. I thought that would be a little bit more of a contested series, whereas Dallas went the stretch with Vegas. They defeated the reigning Stanley Cup champs. They have that momentum kind of similar to what the Boston Bruins had after beating the Leafs. So I wonder if Dallas comes out really strong in this game to stand up against Colorado, because you can never discount this team. Like the Colorado Avalanche Avalanche, I feel like every year they are Stanley Cup contenders, and they have clearly proven that so far this postseason. But this is the one in the West where I think we could see 6 or 7 games, whereas I feel like Edmonton's going to be the quickest series that gets wrapped up against Vancouver out of the 4 that are left.
The Avs have scored at least 5 goals in every one of their playoff games so far. That was in their opening round set against the Winnipeg Jets. And as we look at the Western Conference, you mentioned the Canada versus Canada series. We have asked you a few times, as a native of Toronto, about the Canadian struggle to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. 2 Canadian teams remain in the NHL's final 8. That is the Oilers taking on the Canucks, who will be left standing for all of Canada's hope of winning the Cup.
Well, I'm just happy that there's going to be a Canadian team in the conference finals. Like, we're guaranteed, because they're playing against each other, that one of the final 4 teams is going to be from Canada. But the way the Edmonton Oilers have played so far this season, they're the standout for me. I think they have the best path of any team that's left to the Stanley Cup as well. I mentioned that earlier. The Eastern Conference teams have to go through a ton of battles, whereas Edmonton, I feel like with the injuries and everything going on in Vancouver, really lucked out in this series. Every team left is a great team, but given all the stuff that's happened with Vancouver this postseason, I feel like the Oilers definitely have the best matchup that's left, and they've looked really good. This is a team that usually scrapes by. They usually go the distance with LA. They looked really dominant against LA in the first round this year, even though they've played that team twice before. So Edmonton looks like a powerhouse. Zach Hyman's playing well. Connor McDavid obviously is playing well. And I feel like maybe they're the team to beat. You never know.
Take a look at the Conn Smythe Trophy here for a quick glance. Connor McDavid's at a 6-1 price, the clear favorite, followed by Nathan McKinnon. How about that? Jeremy Swayman at a 14-1 price. Are we still looking at Connor McDavid winning the Conn Smythe as long as we take a look at the Oilers advancing here?
I think if the Edmonton Oilers win the Stanley Cup, Connor McDavid is probably your best bet to win the Conn Smythe. You should look at the Oilers coming out of the West for sure, but I still have faith in the Hurricanes, guys. So, like, when I'm taking a look at who's going to be hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup, it's Carolina. However, for the Conn Smythe over there, it's really anyone's game. My real bold prediction, and I'm not saying that you should follow this, but this was in my preseason before the playoffs began. They asked everyone at the NHL Network for a bold prediction, and I said Seth Jarvis would win the Conn Smythe if the Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup, and he currently leads them in goals. So you would get a lot of bang for your buck there, but once again, very, very heavy emphasis on the bold.
30-1 on Seth Jarvis at the moment. Not a bad number to pay attention to for that Conn Smythe Award. Anna Dua, thank you so much for your time on this Tuesday. From the ice to the NBA playoffs, up next.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
A doubleheader of NBA playoff action here in the second round. It's the conference semifinals. 2 games on this Tuesday, each the opening game of a new series. We start in Boston with the NBA title favorites, the $3 into minus money odds on favorites to win the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics. Every price that we see right now, Donnie, on the C's really goes to show why they are such a strong favorite in what is expected of Boston in this 2024 NBA postseason, including the spread for game number 1 tonight inside TD Garden. 12-point number in favor of the C's. The over-under up slightly to 210. How do you expect the opening game of this set against the Cleveland Cavaliers to go?
Well, I don't, it seems like an easy victory for the Boston Celtics. And I want to try to say, I want to go ahead and take the underdog, getting roughly 12 points. We'll see where that ends up by game time here. I do think it actually has a chance to go a little bit lower based on what news we're getting out of Jared Allen, because most people don't pay attention or probably weren't, and rightfully so, to that first-round series against Orlando, which turned out to be a good one in 7 games. It was that we weren't impressed with the tempo here because we knew Orlando, the way they win, was not to get up and down the court, play really good half-court defense, slow the game down. That's what they were able to do, and almost stole the series that way. But I do think that we're going to get more scoring here because Cleveland does have some scorers, including Donovan Mitchell, who that he's like Brunson. Give me 20 to 25 to 30 shots in a game. Let me see if I can go off, which I do think helps the total, Ben. You take a look at the opening number here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, 208.5. We're now seeing 210s, and I agree with that because I don't think you can take the snapshot of the previous series and say, well, Cleveland can't score any points. That's specifically what Orlando does. You know who can score points? The Boston Celtics. So the Cleveland Cavaliers aren't coming into this game, hey, Ben, slow it down. Let's play a half-court game. You're going to be able to get out and run, and more shots are going to be available. And also, if Allen, who I said earlier in the show, averages close to 17 and 11, and it's not coming back from a knee injury or a bum ankle, it's sore ribs, which certainly for a big guy can be a detriment. But if he is healthy and, takes a couple Tylenol or Advil before the game and can make it through, that's a massive re-add into that lineup that you didn't have for the final 3 games, which you needed here. Possibly could have closed that series out a little bit earlier for Cleveland. So I know it's probably not the prudent thing to do, but I'm actually looking at taking the points. But more than that, I do like that 210 price. I think we get scoring where both of these teams should be in the hundreds, which should be able to take down that 210 currently.
I actually lean to the other way. I think we stay under, and I think Cleveland stays under their team total of 98.5. The Cavaliers never went over that number in 3 games on the road in Orlando. I do not expect them to do that against Boston. The Celtics also a very sound defensive team. 210 was the total for Boston's first game of this playoffs against Miami. It stayed well under. It's the only time a total for Boston in this postseason has been at 210 or higher. Again, the Cavaliers have not scored more than 96 points on the road so far in this postseason. Yes, a new series, but we're also coming off a Game 7 for Cleveland on Sunday in the land, now game number 1 on a Tuesday in Boston. The Celtics have had plenty of time to hone in on their defensive game plan here for Cleveland. And Donovan Mitchell is the answer. Now, I think Donovan Mitchell could go over his points prop tonight against Boston because he had 39 in game number 7, 24 of those in the second half, following a 50-point performance in game number 6, and his team scored 96 in total. 28.5 is the number for Spida tonight against the Celtics. But really, Donnie, what stands out to me is the spread. Once again, in favor of the C's. Boston has been at least a 9.5-point favorite In every game so far here in the postseason, all 5 against Miami, there'll be at least a 9.5 points favorite, regardless of where the spread moves prior to game number 1 tonight inside TD Garden. And in the series against Miami, Boston either won by 14 points or more or lost by double digits against the Heat in game number 2. I don't think Cleveland, even after 7 games, is nearly as bad as the Miami team we saw without Jimmy Butler in that playoff series to start things off against Boston, and yet they're being priced as such. I expect it to be, if even Boston covers, by 13 points. I don't think it's going to be a 20-point blowout for most of the night, as we saw oftentimes against Miami.
No, and you bring up a good point here, because sometimes, and again, rightfully so, we're human beings. We can only see what we watch out there and try to use it for that next round. You had the perfect storm, sort of, right? Because we always knew the Celtics, without Jimmy Butler going up against the Miami Heat, should easily win that series, and they did. And the one thing that we kept saying every game is Miami just doesn't have scoring here. I don't know how they win any of these ball games, and they get lucky with the Game 2 victory where they make 23 three-point shots. And in the same clip here, you had Cleveland without one of their better players for 3 games saying, boy, I wonder why they can't score all that much, because that's what Orlando is, a very good defensive team, as we pointed out. I think some of those things loosen up tonight. I do believe Spider Mitchell has a very good game in this one, but also from a Celtics perspective, they're going to be on it early as well, because it's not like, dude, it's the Miami Heat. If they score 78 points, they'll be lucky to do that. I don't think Cleveland obviously is the Golden State Warriors of a couple years ago in offense, but they're much, much better already than what we saw to the Miami Heat from that previous series. I do think we get some points tonight, and yes, I do think there's a chance they can hang around that 12. Now, do you want to take that 12 full game, or do you want to take that first half where you're getting like 6.5 or maybe 7 points, where you say if they're going to be in this game, they better be in it at the half? Because it doesn't ring to me Celtics up 18 at the break and then the Cavs make a charge. Celtics up 18 at the break, that means Celtics probably up 36 when it's all said and done.
Nightcap tonight in Oklahoma City. It's the opening game of the second round set between the Thunder and the Mavericks. We'll give you a full breakdown on the other side of the break, but here are the odds. OKC 3.5-point home favorite, total at 218.
I like this game, and I just like it from an OKC factor here. You're at home. You've already shown that, yes, we made the playoffs. Yes, we came into the playoffs against an inferior team, and yes, we swept that inferior team. I love that output, but having said that, Dallas is a really good basketball team. Luka's going to be hell on wheels along with Kyrie Irving, but I still think this is the number 1 seed over Denver and also Minnesota. Let that sink in. They were a better regular season team than both of those teams, who were absolutely lauding heading into the playoffs, and OKC was sort of taking that back seat here. The disrespect's going to start to end tonight. They handle their business by margin.
This is a line. Donnie is correct, where OKC is not expected to be the team that swept New Orleans in round number 1. I would disagree. We'll continue the previews up next.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Is it disrespect or is it correct? OKC, 3.5-point favorite for game number 1 of their second-round series against the Dallas Mavericks. The Thunder at home tonight, the total at 218. Donnie, you made the point yesterday. A minus 120 price for Oklahoma City to win this series outright is disrespectful for the Western Conference's number 1 seed that easily dispatched of the New Orleans Pelicans in 4 games in a series we all expected for this young OKC core to kind of take their playoff lumps and maybe learn from. Not the case. Game 1 was close. Every game else very much in control by Oklahoma City. This 3.5-point spread is telling us tonight, not that Dallas loses by 2, but the Mavericks could win this game outright. I'm not so sure, and there's a number that I love. When was the last time, Donnie right side, we saw a points prop on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander less than 30? It's 28.5 against Dallas tonight. Total at 218. The Pels did 0 things offensively in that opening round set. The most points they scored in a game, 92. If the pace is up tonight and the scoring gets even close to 218, whether it goes over or under, SGA is going to lead the way for Oklahoma City. I go over 28.5 just on principle for seeing his points prop under 30.
Yeah, it just seems like more disrespect across the board, Ben, is what we're getting to for OKC. Let's also keep in mind, the regular season was not won on paper, Ben. Like, they didn't just run it through a machine and like, hey, man, OKC looks good. Let's put them the number 1 overall seed. You remember, for the final 3-4 weeks of the season, it was a dead heat by 3 teams. And you're looking at OKC, maybe just not enough gas, too young, and don't know how to win. They took the bull by the horns and became the number 1 seed. They weren't handed the number 1 seed as if they were just putting their names into a hat and picked out. Number 1 seed, OKC. This team, I loved it because we talked about game number 1 of the playoffs where they struggled a little bit on offense. They were at home. Maybe it was nerves. They won that game and then completely pulverized the Pelicans. It felt like the rest of the way, games 2, 3, and 4. And I kept saying along the way, you get that 1 win, you should be comfortable in game 2. Then you change venues for game 3. Oh, no, the pressure's on us. Try to close out this Pelicans team on the road. They did that in games 3 and 4. There's no more, we're happy to be here for OKC or let us prove to you here. They are a very good basketball team. They're going to show up tonight. And I understand the Mavericks are a good team here. They have more pedigree in the backcourt technically than OKC does. But I think as a team, and also let's not forget, home court advantage is a big deal. But Donnie, you just watched Denver, who's a very good home team, get beat. I understand that. There are anomalies to those situations. But you just look at that line and they're basically saying like, yeah, both these teams are about average. We'll throw a couple points to home court for OKC. And let's also keep in mind, like, OKC is rested and ready, preparing for this series for damn near a week at this point. They're going to be ready to go at home, and I expect that 3.5-point number not to come into play tonight. Quite frankly, I expect OKC to probably win by double digits. Again, it's a bold prediction. Yes, we only got to win by 4 points. I get it. But I just don't understand. It feels like everything is disrespectful towards OKC, like they don't deserve to be the 1 seed, and eventually they're going to get knocked out. The Pels would have beat him with Zion. Nonsense here. Show out OKC. I think they do that tonight.
On the other side of that equation as well, if you do think the Dallas Mavericks are the better team, if that is your belief, look at the money line. The 3.5-point spread takes into a couple points into the account that OKC is at home. That's what leads to 3.5. This could be a virtual pick'em played on a neutral site with how important home floor advantage is in playoff basketball. 32.5, the points prop for Luka Doncic. 24 and a hook, the number for Kyrie Irving. You can see what rides on that duo for Dallas. Now it is time for a best bet on this Tuesday. Doubleheader of NBA playoff action. We've got some action on the ice as well in the Stanley Cup postseason. Major League Baseball, a full slate on this Tuesday. So before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time for Bye Bye Bye. Man, here I was filibustering, thinking we had more time. Yep. We don't. Donnie, 45 seconds left. What's the best bet?
Yep, I just filibustered for 2 minutes on the OKC Thunder. That's our best bet tonight, minus 3.5. Lay it, baby. Let's go.
I go over 28.5 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's one of those numbers that really pops out when you see it. Throughout the entirety of the NBA season, 30.5, 31.5. Those were the points props for Shai. He averaged 31 points per game. He hardly ever went more than 36 on a consistent basis, always hovering in the low 30s, but consistent as it gets. At least 24 points in all 4 wins against New Orleans. I go over 28.5. By the way, total for Cleveland-Boston up to 211 and He's DRS. I'm B-double-S. We'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday, 8 a.m. Eastern, here on the Early Line.